everyone, today on the plastic canvas we're painting a deep one from Mansions of Madness. From the plastic canvas, and welcome to another Mansions of Madness painting video. Mansions of Madness is a co-op exploration game where players take on the role of paranormal investigators and go into different locations to investigate some paranormal activities. Fantastic game, really cool horror, sort of Lovecraftian Cthulhu type theme, and the deep one here is one of the bad guys that you go up against. They've all got cards that go inside the base that have a bit of text on the back, and for our deep one it says, "It is some terrible and powerful fusion of fish and human being, croaking, hopping with deadly teeth and claws." Now, usually I can't get these cards out once they've gone in, and it looks like that's going to be the same with this one, but there is some artwork on the card just inside the base there. Just grab one from another character, just like that, just some pretty basic artwork to give a bit of an idea of what it looks like. But yeah, can't get that one out, and that's the case with most of them. Now, as you can see, this mini's glued down to the base. That's because back when we got this game, which was quite a while ago, it was well before I'd even thought about painting any minis, and we just stuck them down so that we didn't have to put them in every single time. Plus, the little sort of pegs that are come off the bottom of the different spots that go into the holes in the base, they're actually rubbish. The minis sit really poorly in the base, so we glued them in just to keep them in there. So yeah, so I'll be painting him on the base. So as you can see, nothing's been done with him so far, so he needs a prime first. I'm still using my brush on primer. If you're wondering, as I've been saying in the start of the other videos, if you're wondering why I'm using a brush on as opposed to a spray on, check out the start of the Siphon video, which was the first video in the Zombie 15 series, just to find out why I'm using brush on as opposed to spray on. But I will be moving away from brush on to a spray primer, but for the moment I'm still working with a brush on. So yeah, so going to give our deep one here a prime, and then I'll leave that for about 24 or so hours to go off properly so I can properly bond to the plastic, and then we'll come back and have a look at how I'm going to paint up this guy. So the prime for the deep one is done, so now I'm going to get onto base coating. Now, I can't get the card out for to show the artwork out of the base. It's really stuck in there. But just from a quick look online, the artwork for this character is being called a deep one, is that it's coming, I think it's from the water, and there's some blues and sort of greys in there. A lot of the artwork with this game is a little bit hard to tell exactly what all of the colours are on a mini or on the character, but I'm going to take those two colours because I think they'll work well together for like the theme of the character, and I've been doing a lot of wet blending with some of the other minis in this game, so I figure why stop now. So what I'm going to do is work from blue at the ends of, like, from the flipper hand things and the tail, and then blend into grey for the body. And then I was thinking maybe for these sort of spiky fin things on its back and the frills there, I might go from black at the tips into grey. So blue from the feet and hands and the end of the tail through to grey, but then black from the tips of the spikes and the frills through to grey. Actually thinking I might go black from the tip of the tail as well, so like these tips are black through to grey and then these ones are blue through to grey. So it's keeping that colour scheme from the artwork, but making it a little bit different. Now I'm going to come back and paint the webbing more of a skin tone. Haven't decided yet, but just for ease of painting at the moment, I'm just doing the whole fin in blue, and then I'll come back and pick out the webbing later on. Just to keep this step a bit easier. base coat has dried there. I'm really happy with the blends that I got there, with the blue through to the grey and then the black through to the grey as well. I think just from looking at it, if I sort of had the time again to paint up the deep one, I'd go with probably the black on the feet as well. I just prefer the way the blend works from the black through to the grey, but still happy with how it's looking. It gives a bit of a different element anyway. So now I'm just going to do a wash on the Mini just to bring out just a bit more depth, so that then the next step will be to highlight. So I'm going to do a black wash over most of the Mini, but I'm going to do blue over the blue spots, and then just blend them where the transition happens from grey to blue, and then from grey to black as well. And then when I do the highlights, that'll then let me bring like the highlights back up to the grey that's here, and the blue that's there as well, just so that it'll just bring them out a little bit more. So I'm just going to use Nolan oil for over the grey parts, and then Drakenhof Nightshade over the blue bits. So yeah, just going to blend them a little bit in the middle there. Everything else just pretty well as usual. I'll try and keep it semi sort of thin, so I'll be spreading it out a bit, just because I don't want to knock like too much colour out of it, but I just want it to settle in, because there is a bit of texture in this Mini, and I just want it to settle in there a little bit just to bring that out a little bit, so that when I highlight over the top there'll be a bit of dry brushing. It'll just make it a bit easier to bring that contrast out. So yep, so just going to do that wash, and then get into some highlighting. Alright, so there we go, highlighting done on our deep one. Got so many of these guys going at the same time, it's hard to keep track of which ones are called which. So a couple of points in there that I'm really happy with, and a couple of things that I mucked up a little bit, or at least just didn't get the level of quality that I would have liked to. On top of the claws and the feet, really happy with the highlighting that I got done there. So the way that I did that was just went back with the same blue that I used as the base coat, and just ran over the top where the light's going to be hitting. Then I just mixed in, so bring in, so oceanic blue was the base coat, and then I mixed in just some light blue, just to lighten it off, obviously, to then do the next layer. So then ran over just the tops of the fingers and the tops of the bones that you can sort of see, well, you mightn't be able to see, but there is a little bit of definition in the top of the claw there. So that was the next layer. And then finished off with some glacier blue, just to then really hit just the very tops, to get that contrast. And then I mixed some white in with the glacier blue, and then just hit just sort of this end of each of the fingers, and did that on each, finger and toe, just to build a good bit of contrast there. So really happy with how that's come up there. You can see I used Ryclin flesh shade over the flesh that I put the tanned skin that I used for the webbing. Happy with how that looked. And one thing that I sort of noticed as it sort of went in there was that it pulled in close to the fingers. So there's a darker ring that runs around the fingers and then comes out lighter towards the middle, and you can sort of see it's still drying here a little bit. You can see that effect a bit there. So that kind of did something that I wasn't expecting it to do, but I actually liked the effect. So I think if I was doing webbing again, I would do actually probably with some brown, do that line and sort of feather it out a little bit. And then over the bone, and I held it there for a little while so you could see it as I was using it, just use the Seraphim Sepia to just dirty up the nails a bit, and I did it on the teeth as well, and I was really happy with the look that I got there. And then with the eyes, I used just a light green for that, pale green. For the eyes, and you see I went back quite a few times and just did that dot just to really get that green to come through, and then I just did a tiny, just a yellow dot, just to brighten it up a little bit, a bit of a focal point. I tried to bring out a bit of the roughness of the skin with some highlighting down here. Happy enough with how this side looks, because the lines are sort of quite clean. On this side though, not as happy through here. The line work wasn't as good, so I'm thinking I might maybe go back with just the black wash just over there, just to knock it down a little bit. But through here, I'm sort of happy enough with how that's looking. But in the middle of the table though, it looks pretty good. It brings out that texture there. So happy with how that's looking there. So yeah, I think the only thing I'll do, just a bit of a wash over there just to knock those highlights down a little bit, just because I'm not super happy with them, but everything else looking pretty good. So the next step now is just going to be to put a prime down on the base, so that, because if you've been watching the other videos, you know what I'm doing, but with the more creature looking minis, I'm doing an earthy, grassy sort of look. So it looks like, sort of like, they're maybe coming from the wilderness towards wherever the scenario is happening, but so that I'm not painting directly onto the base, I just need to put a prime down. So yes, that'll be the next step, put the prime down with a curved edge to it, so that when I paint it, it looks like the paint's continuing beyond the limit of where I've painted, and I'll just do that little bit of a wash just back on the tail there, just to knock those highlights down that I'm not as happy with. Alright, so that primer's dried now, so I'm ready to paint the basing effect on here. So all I'm going to be going for is just an earthy, grassy sort of look, just enough to give that effect. So I'm not going to be spending too much time on, painting individual strands of grass or anything like that, just enough to make it look like it's that the deep ones, crawling across the ground and sort of outside. So I'm going to be using a base of brown, just my muddy brown here for the dirt, and then I'll just be blending in some different shades of green, just a dark and a light green, just to create like a bit of a grass effect, and then even probably a little bit of yellow here and there, just sort of for some basic highlights. And then when it's dried, I've then got some tufts of grass that I'll sort of stick down just to give a bit of a 3D sort of look. But yeah, so pretty simple effect. Yeah, just like I've done with the other creature-looking minis. So yeah, paint it up. Then when it's dry, tufts of grass, and then a varnish, and then our deep one will be finished. Alright, so now that it's at that point there where I've got those greens and yellow sort of mixed in a little bit, I'm going to swap over to one of my older brushes, and the reason I'm going to do that is because with one of these older ones where it doesn't matter sort of if I don't look after the bristles so much, I can just flare them out to then get individual points. And now I'm just going to do a bit of a stippling effect, so just with the same greens and yellows, just a stippling effect to try and get more of an individual kind of grassy look. And then I'm going to let that dry, and then I'll come back and then more deliberately place some of those different shades, because at the moment it's just going to blend because the paint's wet, which is fine, but then when it's dry I'll then be able to control those points a little bit more. So yeah, so this step, stipple in some greens and yellows, let it dry, come back, and then do it a little bit more precisely. Alright, so there we go. Our deep one is finished, ready to go into the box and go up against our paranormal investigators. So when I was doing the base there, you would have seen I was playing around with two different types of grass to use on the base. So this is the swamp tufts. I was also using the mountain tufts just to get a bit of different sort of colouring going on there, just a little bit more sort of variety, but I just didn't think that the different colours went together as well as what I sort of pictured them in the first place. So then I just sort of scrapped the mountain tufts and went with the swamp tufts. So just sort of looking at this guy, the deep one, he looks like he would sort of be coming up out of the water, out of a swamp sort of thing. So I think the colouring of the swamp tufts matches him pretty well. So I went with a few different sizes there. So I've got some of the large ones in there, and then some medium ones, and then a couple of small ones in there. And I've got a lot more dense than usual with these with the grass there, just to really sort of give that context of where he is. So rather than it sort of the grass being more sparse, like with some of the other minis that I've used this sort of grass with, quite dense, so it looks like he's really just come out of the swamp, lots of grass around, just to really give that context to where he's coming from. But yes, I'm really happy with how he's come up. A couple of different techniques in there, the blending with the sort of the blue into the grey and the black into the grey, really happy with how that's looking, and the highlighting that I got going on there, pretty happy with how that's looking. So yeah, another guy finished, happy with how he looks. So thanks very much for spending some time watching me paint another one of these minis up. As always, really hope you've gotten something out of the video, something that you can take away and use in your own painting, or at the very least you've just simply enjoyed watching me paint. As I always say, please do leave a comment down below, something that you liked about the video, and also something that you think could be improved, so I can keep making these as good as possible. But yeah, so that'll be it. So this is Matt from the Plastic Canvas signing out. Happy painting, everyone. Cheers.